You're listening to Three's a Crowd, the North East Footy podcast, with Rye for Borough, Steve for Newcastle United, and Ted for Sunderland. Well, it's kind of Three's a Crowd, isn't it? It's kind of. Do we call it Two's Company this week?
Yeah, Two's Company this week. No Rye this week. And obviously, we've got apologies to make because obviously we haven't had this for a couple of weeks, really, just for different reasons. People busy, family stuff getting in the way, and all that. So me and you decided to do this with it being cup final weekend.
Yes,
for Newcastle United, mate. So we didn't want to miss this one.
Massive game for the North East this weekend. Obviously, Coventry versus Sunderland doesn't get bigger than that.
The Jimmy Hill Cup.
Are you? Oh, see, I'm in a good mood. You have to get on record by mentioning him. Somebody said I looked like him the other week because of the beard. The way was it Daniil? It was awful. That like I went Daniil. Yes, no, man. All joking aside, huge weekend for Newcastle United. Obviously. We're going to touch on that. In fact, it's been a good week all around, I guess, for Newcastle United because the international call-ups as well. Maybe a couple of surprises. Certainly one surprise in amongst all that, Steve. So we'll come to that as well. It was also an international call for Elysia Mayenda for the Spanish under-21s, which I think is very, very well deserved. The lad's been in absolutely brilliant form. So we'll have a little chat about it. We don't normally like the international stuff, but we will cover it this time, Ben, as there's been a couple of eyebrows raised at that one. I've got a what the fact. It's a very topical what the fact, so we'll come to that very shortly as well. We're also, Steve, I'm gonna do a serious subject as well. Corporate responsibility.
All right, okay.
Yes, yeah. There's been rumblings. Sunderland AFC this weekend are going to be putting the traditional badge back onto the red and white shirt, the old ship with the Sunderland AFC logo on it, but with a slight difference. It's to highlight climate change and football clubs recognising climate change, and it's kind of the Sunderland on the badge is kind of half submerged underwater to signify climate change. Quite a few people going, just get on with the football, you know. But yeah, we'll have a little bit of a chat about that as well, because there's always a few little bits of eyebrows raised and things like that. So yes, I guess there's no other place to start, Steve, than there's a bit of a game going on down in London tomorrow. Bit of an odd one going into it. Obviously, we haven't spoke properly, certainly not on air, about what you've got available squad-wise for that. Obviously, Anthony Gordon getting sent off, that was a major blow for that. A couple of other players missing as well, but Liverpool also getting a couple of kicks during the week and their European exploits. Maybe not in the best frame of mind as well after getting dumped out of Europe. So it's not the worst time to play Liverpool, and dare I say it.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? It's an intriguing cup finalist. I mean, this really is the battle of two teams who, you know, on their day can beat anybody. And you know, Newcastle have proved it, Liverpool have proved it, and it's the 188th match between the two clubs. It's the third in the League Cup, and it's one apiece in this cup competition. It's, you know, it is down to who turns up on the day, of course, and it's who puts in the best effort. It's, you know, it's a cup final. It's 11 against 11, and it's on a neutral ground. It's not at Anfield. It's not at St James's Park. There's 32,000 Scousers and 32,000 Geordies there. Two of the most passionate fan bases, you know, in the UK, if not the world, who will make it an atmosphere to remember tomorrow. There's a lot of omens. You know, from our perspective, we've got a really good track record in London this season. We've got a 100% win record. We've beaten Spurs, we've beaten Arsenal, and we've beaten West Ham this year. So that stands in our favour. We have got an issue with Anthony Gordon missing because, you know, on that left-hand side, him and Lewis Hall have been exceptional. And, of course, Lewis Hall out for the rest of the season now. So, yeah, your entire left side's been removed. But flipping that into a positive is that it means that Newcastle are less predictable. You know, Slot is going to be wondering what Eddie Howe's got up his sleeve. The only other two injuries, of course, are Sven Botman and Jamal Lascelles. Well, we've played most of the season anyway without Sven Botman and Jamal Lascelles, so there's no big issue there. Other than that, it's a fully fit squad. So Newcastle are going into this cup final, I would say, in a much stronger position than they did against Manchester United in 2023. And that can only be a positive thing. This is another cup final where, you know, Newcastle are, you know, they're going into a cup final, but they've got the experience of being in a cup final previously 2 years ago. And I genuinely feel that that's going to help them massively, you know, because rewind 2 years ago, the Newcastle fans and the Newcastle team, this was just something really new. It was something which we didn't expect, and something which was, you know, probably overawed us, you know, from our perspective. It overawed us, but it also overawed the players. There was probably only one or two players in there who had any kind of big game experience to that extent. And I just think against Manchester United, we're froze. And at this time, I think it will be different. I think Newcastle will look at this and seize the opportunity. They'll you know, they will be able to motivate themselves for this, and those players who've been on that losing side now will want to be on a winning side. And I think to win the final, Newcastle have to leave everything on the pitch. They've got to leave everything on the pitch, Ted, and that's what will win this game. You know, it's one moment of brilliance. You know, whether that be, you know, a goal from open play or a free kick, one moment of brilliance can win this game. And I think it'll be a very exciting and open game. And I think, you know, there could be a lot of goals in it. But yeah, listen, I'm excited. Looking forward to it. Always going to have a bit of nervousness because it's a cup final, of course. But I also think Newcastle's preparation's been spot on this time round. They've done things differently. Press conferences were yesterday. They didn't do them earlier in the week like they did the previous time. In all intents and purposes, they're treating this like a league game. So there's nothing different for those players. You know, that it's just a normal week for them. So that's a key. And I think pick that up from Eddie Howe's press conference yesterday, that's what they're doing, you know, not changing anything massively so that the players aren't unsettled. So there'll be little things altered and changed. But you know what? I genuinely think that we've got as much of a chance of Liverpool as Liverpool of winning this. And they've got injury problems. Trent Alexander-Arnold will be missing. Gomez and Conor Bradley are out. I still think Konate will play. I mean, he didn't look too good in that game against PSG, but I still think he'll be available. You know, and they've got a whole host of wonderful players. You know, Salah, Nunez in particular are players who, you know, who've got a great record against Newcastle. So, you know, we can be up against it, but, you know, how many times in cup finals have, you know, the favourites been toppled by the underdog? And you know, that could happen. It happened in '73, Ted. I don't have to tell you
certainly
that.
Did. Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. You've already you've already touched on it there. And, you know, what I can't stand about certain cup finals is how cautious and cagey they are. I just don't see it. I just don't see that's going to be the case with this game. It's two teams who, you know, who seem to enjoy playing each other. Yeah, there's a genuine bit of enjoyment. There's goal scoring opportunities. It's not one, you know, if you're a Sam Allardyce fan and kind of admiring centre backs, it's not one for the defensive experts. It's a one for the football purist, and I can't see anything less than like sort of, you know, 3 or 4 goals at least in this game. I think it's going to be one of the more entertaining finals. Touch wood. I hope I'm not jinxing it, like, but I can really see this just being like, look, Sky TV are going to be all over it. Let's be honest. They're going to reference the 4-3 games. I just see it being one of them, Steve. Do you see the same?
But, I mean, it could be, you just need to look back through the last few games that Newcastle and Liverpool have played. Obviously we played them in February. Liverpool won 2-0. Previous to that, in December, Newcastle played out a 3-3 draw. Should have won 4-3 if the whistle hadn't been blown. I'm convinced Isak would have gone on to score that winner. The game before that, Liverpool won 4-2. The game before that was a 2-1 to Liverpool. Van Dijk got sent off by the same referee that we've got for the final. Which is interesting. And previous to that, of course, we went into a game against them and lost 2-1. So there's goals. There's 3 goals minimum in these games. It seems almost now, and I genuinely think that there'll be games in the final. Yeah, I can see there being games in this, and this is a game that's made for Salah or Isak. There's some fascinating battles that are going to take place. I mean, watching Liverpool this season, one person who really has grasped the opportunity with this new manager is McAllister, World Cup winner, of course, and somebody who will be, up against Bruno Guimaraes.
2 brilliant midfields, 2 fantastic midfields.
Bruno Guimaraes and McAllister clashing heads is going to be interesting, just as Tonali and Szoboszlai will be.
Gravenbach as well, really played himself into good form this season.
Big names in that midfield. Joe Linton. Although we lost Anthony Gordon, we got Joe Linton back in, and the fact that he is fit and available and is now firing on all cylinders. He got 90 minutes under his belt on Monday when we beat West Ham 1-0, and he was back to his brilliant best, back to his brilliant bullion best, and that's what we need. We're going to need a bit of steel in that midfield as well. Alexander Isak against Van Dijk. We played Liverpool at Anfield, lost 2-0, and Isak wasn't available for selection, and that made a difference. Newcastle were powder puff up front, and when you have Isak against Van Dijk, Van Dijk's got something to worry about, and that's a key. Obviously, we've already touched on the left-hand side. That is weaker than it has been because of the 2 absentees. And that gives Salah the opportunity, I guess, to get into Newcastle and get around the back. But then you add to that the fact that Dan Burns has been picked for England, and Dan Burns, a Geordie boy, proud of his roots, and he won't want to lose this game. That you could play anybody at that full-back role in left back. Everyone will give 100% for themselves. But there's just some fascinating battles. Goalkeepers played a part as well, of course. Newcastle's got Eddie Howe's got a huge decision to make. Does he play Dubravka or does he play Nick? What
would you do? Because
Dubravka.
He's kind of been responsible for getting them there, really, isn't he?
I'm gutted for Nick Pope in a lot of ways, because Nick Pope missed the last final through his own stupidity. He got sent off, and from my perspective, that was gutted for him. We ended up in that crazy situation where Dubravka went out on loan and to Manchester United, and we ended up having to play Karius in goal in a cup final. At least we've got the opportunity of having two keepers. I would play Dubravka. I know Dave's in the chat there. He would play Pope. My reasoning has always been very simple. I think both keepers are on par with each other. I don't think there's much between them. I just feel that the distribution by Dubravka is better than the distribution that we'll get from Nick Pope. And I think it's quicker. And I think if we're going to counter-attack and if we're going to have an opportunity to win this game, we need to be quick. And I think, unfortunately, Nick Pope does tend to slow it down. Having said that, if the game goes to the later stages or if it goes to penalties, I wouldn't be surprised to see Nick Pope get brought on, because the guy's got a wonderful penalty record. And it's just one of those psychological things. And Nick Pope
Tim Krul tactic.
Nick Pope could find himself literally on the bench, but then coming on to be the hero of the hour. So you just don't know. You never know what happens in this crazy game that we all love. It's a huge opportunity, but it's 2 really good teams. And some people have already put it in the chat there this morning about getting two monkeys off our back. Really, one is of course winning a cup and finally getting rid of this this horrendous record that we have, almost 70 years without a trophy, and of course beating Liverpool. A lot of people of a certain vintage are still very hurt by 1974. and Kevin Keegan et al. Beating us, at Wembley by 3-0 in a game that Newcastle were favourites in. So from our perspective, we just look at that and think this could be it. This could be the opportunity for us to get that kind of, to get that out of our system. But exciting. It's a really exciting game. But the nerves are kicking in as well. That people on their way down now, and by car and by train and by plane, and it's fantastic. It's just fantastic to be involved in another cup final so quickly. And
there'll be some takings in the local bars around Wembley Way over the next night or two, won't there? They'll be doing all right.
Well, I think as well. I think we know as well, if Newcastle win or lose, that people will be, people will still be doing the same on Sunday. But yeah, it's exciting, mate. Looking forward to it.
We're gonna talk a little bit about the form going into this as well, Steve. It has been a little bit up and down. I watched the game against West Ham. West Ham actually almost, I would say, edged the first half, I want to say. But we'll have a little bit of chat about that. I just want to very quickly start the what the fact this time. It's a topical one this time, I think. I've managed to squeeze in some decent clues, and it's so anybody new to the show, anybody tuning in for the first time, when it's my turn to present this lovely show that we've got, I have a little game called What the Fact. So I have an amazing fact about Northeast football. I'm going to give you 3 clues to guess what the fact. Your first clue, and it's a Steve Wraithism, this one. It's always the bridesmaids, never the brides.
Okay.
That's your first clue.
Always the bridesmaids,
never the brides.
All right. So is it a Newcastle related one?
It's a Northeast football related one. I tell you what, it's black and white and it's red and white. In fact,
all right.
I'll tell you what, I'll do you 2 clues. I'll do you 2. So always the bridesmaids, never the brides. Then the second clue is a shared jinx for red and white and black and white.
Right. A shared jinx for red and white and black and white.
Yeah. So it's Newcastle and Sunderland specific, this little fact.
Okay.
Well, I like that one from Lee. It's not right, but what a great one. Newcastle do better when there's a king on the throne.
Okay, well, anyone in the chat who has, can help us out on that. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride, and a shared jinx.
Yeah, for red and white and black and white.
Okay, anybody? Donald, is he in the chat? He's often somebody who gets on here and gets them right.
He's very knowledgeable. We've got some knowledgeable folks in the chat today, so I'm sure somebody might get this one, but there'll be a final clue later on in the show. But yeah, just kind of wrapping up on the Newcastle thing, Steve. Like I say, I watched the game against West Ham, and it was a bit of a strange one. A great win, very professional job, getting it over the line, especially with with suspensions, with the injuries that's in place at the minute. A good result to come away from that. Looking further back, the form's a little bit up and down, isn't it? It seems to be the more you play at home at the minute, it's kind of the worse the form is. So maybe a welcome break actually being away and playing a cup final on home on neutral soil might actually suit Newcastle's form a little bit better at the minute.
Yeah, I mean that was a point I was trying to make before. We've got an unbeaten record in London this year, which is great, and the fact that we've got we've got like players available this time round will make a hell of a difference. But looking at those games that you're talking about, prior to this, West Ham, I felt Newcastle did a very professional job down there. When you bear in mind that they were coming off the back of 2 defeats, Liverpool, of course, away at 2-0, and then the Brighton FA Cup exit in the 5th round. They had to bounce back, and it was the game before the cup final. They had to bounce back, so I thought they did well. I thought it was an industrial performance. wasn't the most pleasing on the eye, but statistically, Newcastle were fairly even. West Ham all the way through, just edged it with the goal. So, getting a win of any sort going into a cup final is very important for confidence, and that's what they did. The Brighton game was more disappointing for me because we missed an opportunity again against Brighton at home to put them to the sword. And obviously you can point to the Fabian Schär goal that was disallowed and say we were unlucky there, but it was always going to be Minte and Welbeck, wasn't it? And Welbeck
Oh,
with his Sunderland connection, of course. It was always going.
Wasn't going to bring it up. Bring it up.
It was always going to be. It was always going to be the case. So yeah. I mean, look, disappointing because the way that the FA Cup draw was opening up. Newcastle were up there with Man City as favourites, and the door's wide open for Man City to get a trophy this season now.
I honestly think Brighton's going to go ahead and do it, mate.
Possibly.
I really do. I think they're a good cup side. I think, I've watched a few games of them now. Weirdly, I've watched both ones against Newcastle as well.
Yeah.
And I just felt maybe Brighton have actually figured out Newcastle and how to play against them. They seem to do a good job on you most times, but they're doing it. They're not just doing it to Newcastle. They're doing it to other big teams in the Premier League as well. They're sort of an up and coming. Everybody talks about Nottingham Forest. Never ever call them Notts Forest. They get very, very upset about that. It's Notts County. But there you go. Nottingham Forest, everyone's talking about them at the minute. But Brighton have really, they're turning heads. Everybody thought with De Zerbi going, it might have been, a bit of a wobble for them and being difficult to replace that kind of coach. But absolutely, they are putting in tremendous performances with a squad that, they're a bit of a selling club, Steve, but they're developing players at a great rate. Even trying to take Tommy Robson off us at this moment in time as well. So they're a young team, got the right idea. Do they impress you at all?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I mean, there's one or two teams now when you look at the Premier League this season who are taking the division by storm and causing a little bit of an upset. And you've got the likes of Brighton, you've got the likes of Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth, Fulham to a degree as well this season, who are all in and around that kind of top half of the Premier League table, who on their day can take points off the likes of Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, whatever. So one of the top six, top four for many years, Manchester United, have been completely usurped and are now struggling mid-table. So we are in this weird situation at the moment where Steve Hasty, who I do the Amigos with on a Friday, said last night, is it that Liverpool are 15 points better than everybody else, or is it just that everybody is crap this season? It almost, it does have that kind of feeling, and he was saying that because obviously we'll play Liverpool in the cup final and giving us a bit of hope and giving us a bit of anticipation, and records are there to be beaten, and like Goliath is there to be taken down by David, and that's where we're at with this cup final, I think. But yeah, there's unfortunate for Newcastle. They had another good run in the FA Cup. It's come to an end, and there's nothing we can do. But the most important thing, which is what we're talking about, is getting a win against West Ham. 1-0. Bruno having a great performance. Joe Linton back in the swing of things. Isak fully fit. Those names on that team sheet tomorrow give us hope. And hopefully there's a hero amongst them. It's somebody's opportunity to be a hero tomorrow. And to be a hero, not just for tomorrow, but for the rest of the time. And we all know when that inevitable trophy comes at Newcastle that, it'll be, people will party and, probably for the full week. I would expect a few sick notes going in on Monday. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Zippy, that's a disgraceful comment. Why's the Mackham got a Coventry 1987 kit on? He looks like Mickey Gin. That's hurtful. I went to a third kit. I'm not like horses for courses. I know I probably shouldn't have worn a sky blue one. He's right. Like, we have got Coventry today, and it's a bit of a bogey side for us. In fact, we'll may as well get into that now.
Yeah,
I was doing a bit of research on this because I we hate Coventry. For obvious reasons. The whole Jimmy Hill thing. Everyone knows that there's always going to be bad blood between us. I think Daniil's right. I'm going to have to trim this down a bit. It is a bit chinny, isn't it? Anyway,
yeah.
So I was looking into the form. To be honest, our form against Coventry is absolutely appalling. We've played 10 games at the now named Coventry Building Society Arena. Very snappy title. Marketing must have been up all night for that one. We've won none in 10 games away at Coventry since they've moved from Highfield Road. We just cannot get a win there whatsoever. We were 2-0 up earlier on in the season at home, cracking goals from Isidore and one from Dennis Serkin, and they pegged us back to 2-2. We just cannot seem to put this team to bed whatsoever. So coming into this, and we've talked a little bit about recent form, Steve. Sunderland's form is a little bit uninspiring. All right, getting beat away at Leeds is kind of, they can beat everybody. That's a given. They're up there for a reason. Looked a little bit wobbly against Portsmouth. I thought Matt Ritchie was absolutely tremendous against them, by the way, Steve.
He was.
Wonderful performance from him. You look at players like that, you think, what else have you got to prove? But he was absolutely tirelessly running after everything. And Pompey, very, very well worth their win. And I honestly thought that might start the Leeds wobble, but it seems they're back on form. And getting back to Sunderland, bit of an uninspiring game against Preston in midweek. My great nephew was mascot for. Very, very proud occasion for us on that one. That was probably the best part of the whole game, to be honest. That and Mundell's absolute rip snorter of an equaliser. But teams like that, Steve, this is where Sunderland have managed. And Tom, I'm kind of coming to that one. Do you think we can catch Burnley in the league? We've got to start to put teams away that are down beneath us. We've had really good performances and really good results against the teams up and around us. The likes of Middlesbrough we've beaten twice this season. Sheffield United, we've won one, lost one. Then there's only Leeds where we haven't at least got a win out of it. So it's a bit of a weird one. I think we've got to win today to actually stand any sort of chance of still being up there and still have a chance of automatic promotion. There is still a chance of that happening. But I don't know, they just seem to be playing with the shackles on, Steve. I honestly think they've kind of resigned to the fact they're going to be in the playoffs. And I feel like it's almost the easy street a little bit. It's kind of right. The playoffs are safe. Let's not risk any injuries, anything like that. Let's just prepare everybody. That's fine in some respects. But the other problem you have with that is you lose that edge. And it just feels like it's gone a bit pedestrian. The same closing down, the same pressing game that was there at the beginning of the season, where we're beating Burnley 2-0. Sheffield Wednesday absolutely destroying them early on the season. It's all with that high press, and it just doesn't seem to be that now. And the crowd, as a result, have gone really, really quiet at home. I don't like pointing that out, especially in front of Geordies, but it is. And I noticed it when I was there as well against Hull City. It's gone a little bit flat at the stadium, I like. And it's almost like sort of where the supporters are supposed to shout the team on. We're almost waiting for the team to give us something to shout about. Yeah. And it's just gone a little bit stale. So we need to recapture that. Obviously, it's away today, which is maybe not a bad thing for us. I just fear that against Coventry and them being right in form at the minute, again, using the F word, form, Lampard seems to have found his level with them. He's doing very, very well with them. Has that surprised you a little bit, mate? Because I know in shows we've done previously, we've made fun of the likes of Lampard, we've made fun of the likes of Rooney for not having the greatest records as managers, but Lampard seems to be doing all right with Coventry. Do you think there's a future there for him?
Yeah, because that's his level. He's not a Premier League manager. He's a Championship manager, and you bear in mind what he did. It was at Derby County when he was at Derby, where he started off. He didn't try to go in at the high level. He's gone in at that level, and I think he could probably make a decent career out of being a Championship manager. And I'm sure he'd be very happy with that. And of course, being a Championship manager, you're going to lead teams to promotion, and he could end up in the Premier League. But I just don't think he's got what it takes to be a Premier League manager. But he's done fantastically well at Coventry. When you think where they were when he went in there, and he's got them into the on the verge of the playoffs, they're going to be delighted. And they're one of a couple of teams who could gate crash the playoffs. When you look at the top of the table, you've got Leeds United 2 points ahead of Sheffield United now, which is it's starting to look as if Leeds might end up second place again. Then with Burnley sniffing down the neck, you're thinking, oh God, are they going to fall apart again? They've done so well so now, but it's usually that Easter period that tells people apart. Yeah. But then obviously that kind of playoff group of teams, Sunderland obviously leading the pack on behind Burnley on 69 points, Bristol on 57, West Brom 56, Coventry 56. And then Middlesbrough, we thought were down and out, have had a little bit of resurgence. One or two daft results, but they managed to get themselves back in the mix again, and they're on 53 points. You're probably saying that the likes of Blackburn and Watford 52, Sheffield Wednesday 51. It's going to take something monumental, somebody monumentally having to fall above them for them to get in the playoffs. But I'd say down to Borough in 8th, it's anybody's opportunity for the playoffs. So yeah, Coventry's a hard game for Sunderland today. But like I've said on here many times this season, that Sunderland are finding a way of not getting beat, and that's a lovely habit to have. And yes, I mean, if you added up the games where Sunderland have been ahead and ended up drawing this season, Sunderland would be top of the league. And that's been probably the biggest disappointment for Sunderland this year. But it's a nice habit not to get beat. The big fear, of course, is Sunderland getting into the playoffs. It's who you end up playing, and you just gotta. It's going to be a tough game, whoever you end up with. But there's some interesting teams in and around there, and of course, we know with the playoffs, as happened with the very first playoffs in history, the team that sometimes finishes the lowest sometimes gets promoted. And that really is that is the thing with the playoffs. It is an absolute lottery. And I always find it, not just because of what happened to us in that very first season, but I always find it very unfair that a team has played a full season, got into that position where in the old days that would have got them promoted, and now they have to go into like a round robin shootout. I've never liked the playoffs, never liked the idea. When you're involved, I've never liked them anyway. It's not a great feeling as a team when you've gone through the whole season and you've had promotion stolen away from you by a team that was 10, 15, 20 points worse off than you. It's just bizarre. But
same happened with us in the Championship under Peter Reid, didn't it? The famous Charlton final. It is an absolute sickener when it does happen. Like, you're right in the teams that's there. There's some absolute quality. I mean, West Brom under Tony Mowbray have really come into their own and played some excellent football, like you'd expect from Tony Mowbray. That does also mean they're a little bit easy to pick off at the back as well. They're not the strongest at the back, I would say, but a very, very entertaining watch. Burnley, if Burnley kind of slip up and end up being in the playoffs, they're the ones to beat because they just don't concede, Steve. They've conceded 10 goals in the league all season. That's incredible. And they've actually found the knack of putting the ball in the net now as well, because that was the criticism under Scott Parker is, defensively very strong, but it took them a lot of chances, maybe just to sneak 1-0 wins. But they're now turning them 1-0 wins into 2 and 3-0 and just starting to grow into their own form a little bit. He's winning some plaudits as a manager, Scott Parker. Obviously, he did well with Fulham. He got them promoted again. Is Scott Parker another one, do you think, where Championship is maybe his level, or are we doing him a disservice there? Do you think Scott Parker could actually be a Premier League manager given the right circumstances?
I mean, Scott Parker has had brief flirtations, hasn't he, with the top flight? Again, I think he's somebody who'll make a living from management as long as he wants to. He's like a steady away manager, isn't he? He's like a Chris Wilder. He's like a Sam Allardyce. A Tony Mowbray, whatever you want to, whoever you want to make the comparisons. Yeah. He's like that. So yeah, he will have, he will have a career as a manager. Again, I don't think he's a Premier League manager. I just don't think that he's somebody who will work at the top level. I think he'll end up, he will end up in a position where he takes a team up and then is out on his ear within 6 months because they're getting beat every week. So yeah, I don't think there's a situation there for Scott Parker to become a long-term Premier League manager. I just don't see it. And I think there's better managers than him as well, and I don't think he would get many opportunities. But if he took somebody up, got in the Premier League, I think, they'd give him a chance. Got to give him
the opportunity, haven't you? Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tom's raised a good question there. Ted, what's happening with Luton Town? They were in the Premier League last season. Now they're fighting relegation in the Championship. Tom, I honestly really do think they're going to do a Sunderland and go back-to-back relegations, because I think it's a lot to do with recruitment. I think it's being poorly recruited for the Championship. It's all right dropping down a division and to use Newcastle as an example here. You recruited well when you went down to the Championship, Steve. You kind of got players who were Championship level, but equipped physically for the Championship as well, but retained like a nucleus of Premier League players as well. You kind of got to find that right balance. I just don't think Luton have done it. I think Luton kind of went into this season very much expecting to go back up, and I think that was that's been part of the downfall. They just didn't recruit properly. They've got players who think they're Premier League players and aren't even built for the Championship, and I think that's their biggest problem there. Obviously, we're delighted that we've overtaken them because obviously it hurt a little bit when they knocked us out of the playoffs, because the brand of football they play isn't exactly appealing to watch like. But yes, there we go. So yeah, getting back to the game, I suppose the Sunderland game. It's a bit of a sticky one, this, because like I say, the form going into it, but I don't know. We've kind of buried the hatchet. You're on about getting the monkey off the back earlier, Steve. We've beaten Swansea away this season. We've beaten Middlesbrough away this season as well, which were big games that in places that we just don't do well. And so I think at some time that hoodoo has got to end, and I actually do fancy us for this today. As much as our form hasn't been great, maybe being away from home, getting in front of those away fans, they'll make plenty of noise, and I actually see us getting away with a win today. But we'll do the full. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think Mayenda, in the form that he's in right now, is getting to be pretty unplayable. He's strong, he's quick, he gets shots away. All right, he didn't score at the weekend. He was taken off in a bit of a strange substitution. I guess the fans weren't 100% happy with the way that was played, but I think we've got to put a bit of faith in Regis Labrie. Getting us up to 4th place anyway this season is way ahead of where we thought we'd be anyway. So, yeah, I do see it. I can see us sneaking away with a win, but like I say, we'll keep our powder dry and we'll do the predictions later on. Have we got any? Have we got any troll of the week this week, Steve?
We always have that, mate. I'm always ready and always.
Genuinely, I didn't know.
always willing to share the cat. Okay, we had this one, which was from Tony Montana. If I can just get rid of that comment. Credit where it's due. The atmosphere last night at Anfield has been superb. One of those proper European nights under the lights. Bit weird that they sang everything in French, though. And get ready to learn Arabic, buddy, says Slot to Nunes after missing the penalty against PSG. And this one. The ball's just been passed to me, so you're going to kick it forward, right? Right. That one's for you, Dave. I knew you'd like that one. SJP, Dave. The biggest troll of the week was fantastic. It was a spat between Alan Saint-Maximin and Jose Mourinho. Got completely out of control this week to this point. A battle of words between Jose Mourinho and Alan Saint-Maximin. Maximin posted, "When a lie takes the elevator, the truth takes the stairs. The truth takes longer, but it comes in the end." Mourinho, as usual, responded in his own way. "I didn't know Maxi was talented at writing poetry. He used a poem about life and stairs. I'm good at it too. I can only say that when a footballer trains well, he becomes fit and can climb stairs without needing an elevator. But if he doesn't train well, if he arrives late and is overweight, he needs an elevator to climb because he tires out very quickly on the stairs."
Absolute legend, isn't he?
Only one winner there. Jose won, ASM nil.
We'll do the final clue for what the fact, Steve, because it's very, very close. It is very, very close now. We've got somebody who's there or thereabouts with it. I was looking for specifics, Geordie Toon for life, if you are still there, mate. But yeah, I'm going to give the last clue, which I think will open the floodgates. I think everybody might get this one. So the first 2 clues, always the bridesmaids, never the brides. The second clue was a shared jinx for red and white and black and white. And the third clue, no milking it, this will rumble low, but it'll be worthy it.
So it simply that Newcastle and Sunderland have never beaten Liverpool in any form of the League Cup?
You're along the right lines. Geordie Turn for Life was closer.
Right. Okay. Anybody?
He's here. So the last clue, no milking it. This will rumble low, but it'll be worthy it.
Right.
Milk up, rumble.
Come on, somebody out there, guess it. We hate it when Ted's smug with these.
Mate, come on. With a football club like that mine that I follow, I can only be smug about certain things. Like,
well, that's true. Like, that's true.
So I'm gonna have to give it on because Geordie Two for Life is actually very, very close.
All right.
The fact is, we may as well do it. So the fact is that Newcastle and Sunderland have each so far, before tomorrow, have played in 2 League Cup finals and lost them both. We've both got the same record in League Cup finals. There you go.
There we go.
Yes.
Very good.
One of my first memories of watching Sunderland is actually the Milk Cup final when
85.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah. The Clive Walker missed penalty and all that sort of thing as well. It's still lives in our memory. I still kind of stand Norwich City to this day.
So one thing Steve Bruce did right. One thing.
One thing, yeah. Apart from leaving down the year 19, but there we go. Corporate responsibility, Steve.
Yes.
It's we're about to bore everyone to tears with this one. But so Sunderland DFC, if you missed the beginning of the show, we're just talking about something that Sunderland are doing on their strips for today's game against Coventry City. Playing in the famous red and white stripes, but they are putting the traditional badge back on the kit with a twist. It's basically where it has the ship and then Sunderland underneath. The Sunderland is going to be half submerged in water to raise awareness for climate change, which Norwich will be under the sea soon. Let's hope, Jeff. Let's hope. So, yeah, listen, I mean, I'm all for it. I love the fact, it certainly grabbed my attention straight away that we're going to stick the old badge on the kit. I'm a bit of a sucker for that anyway. But raising awareness for climate change as a football club, do you think there's a chance, Steve, that some clubs are kind of just using this as a little bit of a PR stunt without actually meaning anything by it whatsoever?
Yeah, I mean, look, you've got to be careful what you see on these things because people can misinterpret it or use it against you. What I'll say is that really
on the internet, no, Steve.
Politics, in football, really, it shouldn't come into it. It's a sport at the end of the day. Yeah. We can look at anything that gets, respect paid to it. For me, the only thing that really football clubs should pay respect to is honouring our war dead, which we do every November, and rightly so, and honouring players, who've played for the club, who've passed away. And this is a big bone of contention with me in Newcastle at the minute because they've stopped doing it. They pay respect to the players online, but we don't have a minute's applause now for players at the ground. And they haven't told anybody. Right. They haven't made a big announcement about this. They've just done it. But when it comes to politics or anything that can be perceived as politics, me personally, I think you should keep it out of sport. Keep it out of there. And some people will say, well, no, it's a huge platform and it's a chance to raise awareness for this and that and the other. But for every person that agrees with it, there'll be somebody who disagrees with it. And it simply causes, disruption, fallout, etc. to people in and around the ground, in and around the football club. And I just don't understand. Understand why we do it. And Craig is very much in the same kind of mindset as me. Stick to football, leave the propaganda to politicians. And that is 100% what I agree with. And I'm not going to go into specifics or things or whatever, because that's what gets turned against you. But yeah, I genuinely think it's an absolute nightmare when you start going down that. We've seen it with players. We've seen it with some people refusing to do things at football clubs because they don't agree with it. And it's a minefield. It's an absolute minefield, Ted. So, whilst I applaud the sentiment and the idea behind this that maybe somebody at Sunderland's come up with. In general, I think anything like that should be left to the politicians and not to the football clubs.
It's not well said, mate. I love Barry's comment there. It'll give Adidas the reason to bring out 6 more shirts. Which, to be fair, Barry, do you know what? You kind of along the same lines as what I was going with this as well. Because I mean, I bought the there was a limited edition shirt that Sunderland brought out in partnership with Hummel. And that was the Remembrance Day training top, which I absolutely loved. It's a white shirt with loads of poppies on the bottom as well. I thought, right, it's all going to the it was the come on, not the poppy appeal. Come on, the Legion, British Legion. So all the money was being raised was going to that, and I thought, right, definitely going to have that. Then they bring out a couple of other tops. Not going to say what they're for because everybody's got their own opinions on what they should do. All of a sudden, there's uproar because it's kind of like, right, now you're bringing politics in. We don't mind the Remembrance Day stuff, but when you're trying to almost like push an agenda on us, you got some people who are all for it. You got some people who are bang against it. It certainly divides fans, which is not what a football club needs to be doing. You know, especially after the few years that we've had out in the absolute doldrums, you need to be galvanising your team together. And to be honest, stuff like taking the mick out the 1987 Coventry strip, this third shirt where it's like celebrating the heritage, the mining heritage of the northeast of Sunderland with the pit wheel kind of emblem on there. I'm all for that. I love all that. If you want to kind of really promote the heritage of the northeast, brilliant. But like you say, political arguments and all that kind of thing, it's a bit of a it's always going to be a bone of contention, like you say, Steve. And I think it's one of those where nobody is ever going to be all happy with it. And that's why it needs to be kept down. I think Craig's actually really, really spoke very well and very eloquently there. Yeah, I think it's just if the players want to support certain political statements and political backgrounds, let them do it in their own time. Yeah, let's have the football clubs for everyone, and I think that's the way we're going to be.
And Jeff, the green and white kit. We've had green and white kits throughout history. Before we had Saudi owners, so I wouldn't say the green and white kit is political. Obviously, people can perceive it as that because PIF are the major shareholders. But go back in your history of Newcastle United, they've had green kits before and white kits, green and white kits, respectively. So I don't think that's the case. What does the Kenny Sampson 1988-89 relegation green and yellow mean that we're supporting Brazil? You can go too far with it. I think people can say that that's what it is, but that's my thoughts, Jeff. Anyway, but you get where I'm coming from. Yeah.
Yeah, you had. I seem to remember yellow and green that you had, where it was the one where Liam O'Brien scored the free kick at Roker Park.
Yeah, we've had that a few times. We had that back in the 70s. We had one as well. We had a red strip. Back in the day, Newcastle, of course, infamously played in red and white, right at the start of history. So we've got so many different coloured strips over the years, and it's just part and parcel. Newcastle have released a ridiculous amount of strips. But if you can't afford them or you don't want them, don't buy them. But I think I'm all for it. It's generating income for the football club, and you pick and choose which ones you want. I wouldn't buy that one. That if I was a Sunderland fan, I wouldn't have bought that one that you've got. I know you like it, but it's all down to what you like. You got the reason for buying that, the sentiment. I think we were joking on when it came out. It looked like lino or something like that, didn't we? Or somebody's curtains, some 1970s curtains. Or you shared something, was it a supermarket it looked like, or whatever it was?
Yeah, there's a few, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I love like, Newcastle fans love the purple and blue strip, which is obviously like a throwback to 1995-96 season when Ginola wore it. So, there's loads. The Grandad collar shirt, everyone's favourite top from back in the day. So there's lots and lots of different ones that you love. I love the old 83-84 promotion season one, the grey one. And the black and white one with a blue star. They're my favourites. So, I mean, everyone's got their own personal taste.
I was always envious because I was a student in Durham. I was at New College doing music. Funnily enough, being taught by Sam Fender's dad at New College back in the day. Yes, cracking lad is Alan. But yeah, we used to go and watch Newcastle train. It used to kill me because obviously they trained in Durham at Maiden Castle at that point, and I was always so jealous of that the away kit that you brought back this season, the maroon and blue hoops. I was so jealous of that. Like that's the one where I thought if Sunderland could have got away with wearing that one, like I would have absolutely loved that. It's still for me that's an iconic kit. It's OG Premier League for me. It's up there with one of the greatest kits. But little rumor that Sunderland, obviously we've got Hummel for 5 years. There's a little rumor that Hummel will bring back another classic away kit for us, and it's the one that'll send a shiver down your spine, Steve. It's the one that we wore when we beat you in the playoff semi-final 2-0. The old blue Hummel kit with Gates and Gabbiadini, which I believe actually very much upset you that day, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I constantly have nightmares about that game and Gabbiadini and Gates scoring and linking up and beating us. Yes. We all thought we had it in the bag.
Exactly.
Nil at Roker Park, and that's what.
Then we absolutely stunk Wembley out.
And then
it's fancy only getting promoted on the back of financial irregularities. I mean, it's absolutely horrendous. But anyway, very quickly before we go, got about 5 or 6 minutes left, Steve. International call-ups, mate. We did mention it earlier on there. Livramento, I think, was kind of somebody who had to be in contention for a call-up. He's played very, very well this season. Anthony Gordon, I'd have been amazed if he wasn't in the squad. Even as a red and white mate, I really, really enjoy watching that lad play. But the biggest surprise out of the lot was Big Dan Burn getting a call-up. Were you surprised?
Yeah, I think everybody was. To hear Tuchel's explanation is just, it's a testament to how well he's played, and he certainly values, a good left-footed centre-half, which are difficult to find. And Dan Burn is, he's been exceptional. He's been our player of the season alongside Lewis Hall. There's no doubt about it. So, yeah, I was surprised to see him picked, delighted to see him picked, and it couldn't have come at a better time just before the cup final. You can imagine how he's feeling now. The only downside to him is if Newcastle do win the cup final, he'll not have time to celebrate because he'll be off to England's training camp. But it's,
I don't think you'll mind that.
It's a unique opportunity for him, and I think everyone's delighted for him. And let's just hope he stays fit and can get on and make his England debut and get an England cap. It's a very proud moment for a local lad from Blythe who has done remarkably well. And I bet a few years ago, he would never have imagined that he would be able to come to his hometown club. He would get to 2 cup finals, and he would qualify and play in and score in the Champions League, and then be picked for England. It's boys' own stuff. It's like Royal Rovers. It's an absolutely fantastic stuff. And as Geordie Dew for Life says, Big Dan Burn shows never give up your dreams if you're a professional footballer or wanting to be a pro. A credit to the sport. And to see him, Tino Livramento, as you say, well deserved. Anthony Gordon, of course, in, and we probably would have had Lewis Hall in there as well. Newcastle would have had 4 players picked for England this year in this particular squad, I think. So it shows that we're in a good place. We've got international footballers across the board. We've come a long way in a short space of time since 2021.
I mean, Livramento has essentially ousted Rico Lewis. Rico Lewis made it into the under-21s for England, which again was a bit of a surprise. I can't see him being too happy about that sort of. He's been in and around the England squad for some time now, but Livramento preferred instead. And like you said, the Dan Burn one is kind of. I like the fact that it's being picked on form. I mean, the Jordan Henderson call-up was a surprising one, but he's justified it by saying he's in great form for Ajax. And obviously, with a few players missing in there, then he's getting his opportunity. So the Tuchel era, of course, the press are going to have a field day. They're going to criticise him no matter what. He's the first German ever to take charge of England. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if Big Dan Burn gets a game. I think he's an old school centre back, and I think Tuchel quite likes that. It should be fair to say anyway. But well done to everybody who got called up, including my ender as well. Like I say, the call up for the Spanish under-21s is no mean feat when you're playing championship football. He deserves a decent crack at it. I just hope he doesn't put himself in the shop window and we end up losing him as well. quickly, let's go through some predictions, Steve. We'll save the biggest one to last. So we'll start with today's game. I've already went, balls to the wall, so to speak, and said we're actually going to pick up a win today. I cannot say it being a straightforward one. We struggle with clean sheets at this moment in time. Patterson's in and out of form as well. I could see us sneaking a 2-1 win away at Coventry today and finally get 3 points down at the Coventry Building Society Arena or whatever they want to call it this week. So, 2-1 to Sunderland. I'm going for that one.
I'm going to go for another draw for Sunderland. I think 2-2. I think it'll be an entertaining game, and I think there'll be goals. 2-2 for me in that game.
Geordie Toon for Life coming out in stereo with you there. He's going for 2-2 as well. On to the Wembley game, Steve. I'll go first on this one because I'm sure you'll have your views on it. I've got this sickening feeling in the pit of my stomach that Newcastle are going to break their trophy hoodoo. I really, really hate to see it. Sorry, Sunderland fans, but I think the Geordies are going to win this. I'm actually going to go for a 2-1 win. No. A 3-2 win I had written down.
3-2.
Geordies. 3-2 win. I think it's going to be all the drama, mate. Yes, there we go.
You're deliberately doing this prediction so that Newcastle get beaten on you.
I genuinely feel sick
our
about
track
it.
record when we both say it's going to be a win. You've just done this deliberately. Well, look, I'm going to tip Newcastle to follow in the footsteps of these heroes: Gary Kelly, Neil MacDonald, Brian Tinnion, David McCreary, Paul Stevenson, John Anderson, Glenn Roeder, Mirandina, Paul Gascoigne, Paul Goddard, Michael O'Neill, and Kenny Wharton. And why are they heroes? Because in 1988, in the Mercantile Credit Classic at Wembley, Newcastle United's Neil MacDonald got the winning penalty against Liverpool to send Newcastle into the quarterfinals. And it was a day of celebration that day. We'll not mention the fact that we then went on to play Tranmere in the quarterfinals and lost 2-0. But yes, Neil MacDonald was the last person to score a winner against Liverpool at Wembley. So we are looking for a hero. I'm going to go 2-1. I'm going to go for Jacob Murphy to get the winner. And the reason it's going to be Jacob Murphy is because Darren on the fans forum on NUFC Matters says, if Jacob Murphy scores for Newcastle and he gets the winner in the cup final, I'm going to get a tattoo. So I'm looking forward to Darren getting a tattoo with Jacob Murphy next week.
Fantastic. Love it, mate. Well, listen, safe journey down there, mate. I know you're off there this afternoon. Drink well, recover well, and enjoy it, mate. It's a great experience for any fan to go down to Wembley, so you enjoy it, mate, and to everybody else who's travelling. But if you're going to the Coventry game, if you're going to the Wembley final as well, safe travels, and we'll catch you next week.
Yeah, and a big shout out to Rye. Hope you're well, mate. Look forward to seeing you when you're back on
Yes, brother. Get back.
See you later.
See you, man.
Three's a Crowd podcast will return. That's not a threat, it's a promise.